The 36th Chamber of Shaolin wasn't just another kung fu movie. It was a revolution wrapped in discipline, a film that turned training montages into high art and made audiences believe that enlightenment could come from carrying water buckets up a mountain. But behind every perfect strike and flawless form, nothing was easy. The star shaved his head without permission. The director fought the studio over every scene. In one sequence, they filmed it so many times the crew thought the actors might actually achieve enlightenment before they got the shot. These are 20 weird facts about the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, and buried in the madness, a martial arts masterpiece that was built on bruises, sweat, and one man's refusal to fake a single move. Enter the chamber. This gets brutal fast. Number 1. Gordon Liu didn't audition for the role of San Te. He earned it through blood. In the early 1970s, Liu was already working at Shaw Brothers Studios, but not as a star. He was a stuntman, a background fighter, someone who got punched in crowd scenes and fell off rooftops for other people's glory. But director Lau Kar-leung saw something different. He saw discipline. Liu had trained in martial arts since childhood, studying under Lau's own adopted brother. When it came time to cast the 36th Chamber, Lau didn't want an actor who could fake kung fu. He wanted someone who lived it, someone who understood that martial arts wasn't about looking good. It was about transformation. So he called Liu into his office and told him the truth. This role would destroy him. Months of training, brutal physical sequences, and a character arc that required him to go from student to master, believably. Liu didn't hesitate. He said yes. And from that moment, San Te wasn't just a character, he was a calling. The film didn't make Gordon Liu a star because he acted well. It made him a legend because he became the role completely. Number 2. The head shaving wasn't in the script, at least not the way it happened. Gordon Liu knew that to play a Shaolin monk convincingly, he'd need to commit fully. So, without telling the studio, without asking permission from the producers, he walked into a barber shop and shaved his entire head clean. Bald, smooth, monk ready. Then he showed up to the Shaw Brothers lot the next morning, like nothing had happened. The executives were furious. Liu was under contract for other films, action movies where he played heroes with flowing hair and tough guy swagger. Now, he looked like an actual monk, and they had no way to use him in anything else for months. But Lau Kar-leung loved it. He told the producers, "This is commitment. This is what we need." And the studio, they had no choice. They couldn't fire him. They couldn't undo it. So they leaned in, they rewrote schedules, delayed other projects, and let the 36th Chamber go first. That single act of rebellion, one haircut without permission, it didn't just change Liu's appearance. It changed the entire production timeline. Because in that moment, everyone realized this wasn't going to be just another kung fu film. It was going to be the one that mattered. And Gordon Liu had already crossed the point of no return. Number 3. The training sequences weren't choreographed, they were survived. Most kung fu movies fake the brutal conditioning, a few quick cuts, some reaction shots, and the hero emerges stronger. But Lau Kar-leung refused to cheat. He built real training apparatus based on actual Shaolin methods. The wooden poles over water, the weighted arm rings, the knife-edge balance beams, all of it functional, all of it dangerous. And Gordon Liu, he didn't just pretend to use them. He trained on them for real, hours every day before filming even started. His arms bled from the rings, his legs cramped on the poles. He fell into the water so many times, the crew lost count. Lau would watch from behind the camera, arms crossed, saying nothing. Because this was the test. If Liu couldn't endure the training, he couldn't play San Te. If he faked even one moment, the audience would feel it. So Liu pushed harder. He balanced longer. He carried heavier weights. And slowly, painfully, he stopped acting like a student and became one. When cameras finally rolled, what you see on screen isn't movie magic. It's muscle memory. It's discipline earned through repetition and pain. The 36th Chamber didn't just show training, it documented it. And every bruise Gordon Liu carried, every stumble, every moment of exhaustion, it's all there in the film, honest and unfiltered. Number 4. Lau Kar-leung fought the studio on every decision. Shaw Brothers wanted a traditional revenge story. Hero's family gets killed, hero seeks vengeance, hero wins. Clean, simple, profitable. But Lau had a different vision. He wanted to make a film about learning, about patience, about the idea that true strength comes from mastering yourself, not just defeating your enemies. The studio hated it. They said audiences wouldn't sit through 40 minutes of training montages. They said the pacing was too slow, the philosophy too heavy, the action too late. They wanted more fights, less thinking. Lau refused to budge. He told them, "This story is about the journey, not the destination. If we rush it, we lose everything." The studio threatened to replace him. They brought in script doctors. They scheduled meetings where executives screamed about box office numbers and wasted film stock. But Lau had one advantage. He was one of the most respected martial arts choreographers in Hong Kong. And deep down, even the suits knew it. So they gave him one chance, one test screening. And when that audience sat in silence through the training sequences, completely absorbed, the studio finally backed off. They didn't love it. They didn't understand it, but they let Lau finish his vision. And that stubbornness, that refusal to compromise, it saved the film. Because the 36th Chamber didn't become a classic by playing it safe. Number 5. The wooden dummy sequence took 40 takes. Not because Gordon Liu couldn't do it, because Lau Kar-leung refused to settle for anything less than perfection. The scene required Liu to strike a wooden training dummy in a specific rhythm, each hit precise, each movement flowing into the next without hesitation. It looks simple on screen, a man punching wood, but in practice, it was torture. The dummy was real, unpadded, solid wood. Every strike hurt, and Lau wanted it filmed in one continuous shot. No cuts, no tricks. Liu would start the sequence. His form would be perfect for the first 20 strikes. Then his rhythm would slip by, a fraction of a second. Cut. Start again. They did this for hours. Liu's knuckles bled. His forearms swelled. The crew watched in uncomfortable silence as he reset, breathed, and tried again. Some of them thought Lau was being cruel, but Liu never complained. He understood. This wasn't about punishment. It was about truth. When you train, you don't get second takes. You either master the technique or you don't. So he kept going. Take 30, take 35, take 38. And finally, on take 40, everything clicked. The strikes landed clean. The rhythm held. The camera captured it all in one perfect, unbroken shot. And when Lau yelled cut, the entire crew erupted in applause. Not for the scene, for the warrior who refused to quit. Number 6. The film's low budget became its greatest strength. Shaw Brothers gave Lau Kar-leung a fraction of what they'd spend on their big wuxia epics. No massive sets, no elaborate costumes, no special effects team. Just a courtyard, some training equipment, and actors willing to bleed. Most directors would panic. Lau smiled because he realized something crucial. Shaolin training isn't about spectacle. It's about simplicity, discipline, focus. So, instead of building elaborate temples, they used the Shaw Brothers' backlot, barely dressed. Instead of designing ornate monk robes, they bought simple cloth in bulk. Instead of hiring stunt coordinators for wire work, they let real martial artists perform real techniques. The limitations forced innovation. Every training device became a character. Every sequence had to justify its existence. There was no budget for filler, no money for flashy distractions, just bodies, movement, and philosophy. And audiences felt it. The film had a raw authenticity that bigger productions couldn't fake. It looked like what training actually was. Unglamorous, repetitive, painful, transformative. Critics who expected another wire fu fantasy were shocked. This was kung fu grounded in reality. And, ironically, by having less money, Lau created something more valuable. A film that didn't rely on tricks or gimmicks, just pure martial arts cinema at its most honest. Number 7. The water bucket sequence almost drowned the actor. The scene seems straightforward. Carry 2 buckets of water up a steep path without spilling. Simple endurance training. But the execution was far more dangerous than it appeared. The buckets were genuinely heavy, filled to the brim, and the path was slick from previous takes. Gordon Liu had to walk with perfect balance, carrying weight that pulled his shoulders down while keeping his core stable. On the 8th take, he slipped. The buckets went flying. Liu went down hard, slamming into the wet stone. The crew rushed in, but Liu waved them off. He was fine, Bruised, soaked, embarrassed, but fine. They reset. On the 12th take, it happened again. This time, Liu fell backward, and one of the buckets came down on his chest, knocking the wind out of him. He lay there gasping while the crew debated calling a doctor. Lau Kar Leung walked over, looked down at his star, and said something that became legendary on set. "Sante wouldn't stop, would you?" Liu got up. They went again. Take 15, take 18, take 22. And finally, he made it all the way up without falling, without spilling, without breaking. The shot made the final cut. And if you look closely, you can see the exhaustion in Liu's eyes. That's not acting, that's survival. Hey, pretty intense so far, right? If you're enjoying these hidden stories about one of Kung Fu cinema's greatest films, go ahead and hit that like button or subscribe because trust me, it gets wilder. Coming up, we've got a fight scene that broke bones, a sound effect recorded in a bathroom, and the moment when Hollywood realized Hong Kong had been doing action better all along. You won't want to miss what's next. Number 8. Shaw Brothers didn't believe in the film. Even after production wrapped, even after test screenings showed promise, the studio brass remained skeptical. They thought the 36th Chamber was too slow, too philosophical, too different from the revenge-driven kung fu films that packed theaters, so they buried it. They gave it a limited release, minimal marketing, and didn't even bother with a premiere. They basically dumped it into theaters and waited for it to disappear quietly. But something unexpected happened. Word of mouth exploded. Audiences who saw it told everyone they knew. Martial artists called it the most accurate depiction of training they'd ever seen. Young people connected with Sante's journey from student to master. The film wasn't just entertaining, it was inspiring. Theater owners started calling Shaw Brothers, demanding more prints. The limited release became a wide release. Then it went international, and suddenly, the film the studio wanted to forget became one of their biggest hits. Shaw Brothers executives were baffled. They'd promoted bigger films with major stars that flopped. Yet this quiet training story, with long sequences and philosophical depth, it became a phenomenon. The lesson was clear. You can't always predict what audiences will love. Sometimes the films that break the rules are the ones that break through. Number 9. The pole training sequence changed Kung Fu films forever. Before the 36th Chamber, martial arts movies rarely showed the grueling process of actually learning technique. Heroes were just naturally talented. They'd practice for maybe one montage, then master everything. But Lau Kar Leung dedicated entire acts to showing Sante struggle, fail, and slowly improve. The wooden poles over water became iconic. Liu had to leap from pole to pole, maintaining balance while moving forward, fall in the water, start over. It took him months to master in real life. And on screen we see that journey compressed but never rushed. We watch him fall, we watch him strategize, we watch him finally succeed through persistence, not magic. After the 36th Chamber, training sequences became essential to Kung Fu cinema. Films like The Karate Kid borrowed the structure directly. Rocky-style montages evolved. Even modern superhero films trace their hero learns to be a hero sequences back to this movie. Because Lau proved something revolutionary, watching someone struggle and overcome is more satisfying than watching them win easily. The pole sequence didn't just train Sante, it trained an entire generation of filmmakers in how to show transformation on screen. And it all started with real wooden poles, real water, and an actor willing to fall until he learned to fly. Number 10. The final fight wasn't rehearsed. At least not the way most movie fights are. Gordon Liu and Lau Kar Leung designed the choreography together, but they didn't lock it down, beat by beat. Instead, they approached it like a real martial arts match. Liu knew the basic structure. He knew the techniques he'd use, the rhythm of the exchange. But Lau told him to react honestly. If something felt wrong, adjust. If an opening appeared, take it. Trust your training. So, when cameras rolled, what you see is something closer to an actual demonstration than a scripted fight. Liu's strikes are real. His timing is instinctive. The villain's defense is genuine because he's truly trying to counter Liu's attacks. There are moments in that final sequence where Liu improvises, throws a combination that wasn't planned, and his opponent adapts in real time. Lau kept the cameras rolling, letting it play out organically. The result is a fight that feels alive, not staged, not performed, fought. Modern action films rehearse fights for weeks, mapping every punch, every kick, every camera angle. The 36th Chamber did the opposite. It trained its star for months, then trusted him to fight for real. And in doing so, it created one of the most authentic martial arts finales in cinema history. Because Sante didn't win by following a script, he won by becoming a master. Number 11. The sound effects were recorded in a Shaw Brothers bathroom. Most studios had professional sound stages with acoustic treatment and expensive equipment, but the Foley artists for the 36th Chamber got creative. They needed to capture the perfect sound of fists hitting flesh, bodies colliding, and weapons striking. So they grabbed a portable recorder and went hunting through the studio lot. The bathroom had perfect acoustics, hard tile walls, natural reverb, and complete privacy. They spent hours in there, punching sides of beef, slapping wet towels against walls, dropping wooden planks on the floor. Other Shaw Brothers employees would walk in, see grown men beating meat in a bathroom stall, and quickly leave. But those improvised recordings became the film's sonic signature. Every punch you hear, every impact, every crash, it was born in that unlikely space. When Western sound designers finally heard the 36th Chamber, they were amazed. The hits sounded more visceral, more real than anything Hollywood produced. And when they asked how Shaw Brothers achieved it, the answer made them laugh. A bathroom, some beef, and artists who understood that great sound design doesn't require expensive studios, just creativity and commitment. Number 12. Gordon Liu trained so hard he couldn't walk. Midway through production, Liu pushed his body past its limits. The daily training wasn't just for show. He was genuinely learning new techniques, perfecting forms, building strength he didn't have before. But there's a cost to transformation. One morning, Liu woke up and his legs wouldn't respond. Not paralyzed, but locked. Every muscle from his hips to his ankles had seized up from overwork. The production doctor examined him and delivered the verdict: complete rest for at least a week, possibly 2. Lau Kar-lung panicked. They were behind schedule. The studio was breathing down his neck, but he also knew pushing Liu further could cause permanent damage. So they made a decision: shoot everything that didn't require Liu walking. Close-ups, dialogue scenes, reaction shots. Liu sat in a wheelchair between takes, his legs wrapped in ice, while the crew worked around his injury. After 5 days, he could stand. After 7, he could walk slowly. On day 9, Liu insisted on resuming training, against doctor's orders, against common sense. Because to him, Sante's journey was his journey, and Sante wouldn't quit, neither would he. Number 13. The monk extras were real martial artists. Shaw Brothers had a massive roster of contract players, stuntmen, and background actors. But Lau Kar-leung didn't want people pretending to be Shaolin monks. He wanted the real thing. So he reached out to martial arts schools across Hong Kong. He invited masters and advanced students to audition, not as actors, but as technical consultants who'd also appear on screen. Dozens showed up. Some had trained in traditional Shaolin styles. Others practiced different forms, but understood the discipline. Lau tested them personally, watching their forms, their breathing, their presence. He selected 30. These men populate the training sequences. They're not acting, they're demonstrating. When you see monks performing techniques in the background, those are authentic movements. When Sante trains alongside other students, he's training with real practitioners. This decision added layers of legitimacy that no amount of choreography could fake. The camera captures genuine skill, genuine respect for the art, and for the martial artists involved, it became a point of pride. They weren't extras. They were representatives of a tradition, showing the world what true Kung Fu looked like. Number 14. The script was rewritten daily. Lau Kar-leung started with a solid outline, but he believed in organic storytelling. If a scene wasn't working, he'd change it. If an actor discovered something interesting, he'd explore it. If the training sequences revealed new insights, he'd incorporate them. This drove the Shaw Brothers script supervisors insane. They'd show up each morning with continuity notes, trying to track what was shot and what remained. But Lau would hand them new pages, sometimes completely different from yesterday's plan. Gordon Liu loved it. He said it kept everything fresh. He couldn't rely on memorization. He had to stay present, react truthfully, live in each moment. Other actors struggled. They wanted security, clear marks, predictable blocking. But Lau's method had purpose. Shaolin training isn't rigid. It adapts to the student, so the film had to adapt too. The final product reflects this flexibility. Scenes flow naturally, characters breathe, moments feel discovered rather than constructed. Critics later praised the film's authentic, documentary-like quality. They didn't realize it came from Lau's willingness to abandon the script whenever reality offered something better. Number 15. One stuntman broke his arm and kept filming. During a sequence where monastery guards attacked students, one stuntman took a fall that went wrong. He landed badly, his arm bent at an unnatural angle. Everyone heard the snap. Cameras stopped, crew rushed in, but the stuntman, a veteran named Wong, refused medical attention. Not yet. He knew if he left set, the production would lose the day. They'd have to reset, relight, and start over tomorrow. So he wrapped his arm in his costume, hiding the injury, and finished the scene. 3 more takes, each one agony, each one professional. Only after Lau called, cut on the final take, did Wong walk off set and collapse. They rushed him to the hospital. His arm was fractured in 2 places. Doctors said he'd need surgery and months of recovery. Lau visited him that night, furious and grateful. He told Wong he was an idiot for risking permanent damage. Wong just smiled and said, "That's what Sante would do." The sequence made the final cut, and somewhere in the chaos of that fight, Wong's pain is captured on film, an invisible sacrifice in service of the story. Number 16. The film almost got banned in Taiwan. When the 36th Chamber was submitted for Taiwanese distribution, censors flagged it immediately, not for violence or language, for politics. The story depicts Chinese culture, Buddhist, philosophy, and Shaolin tradition in a positive light. In the late 1970s, Taiwan's government was sensitive about anything that might be construed as mainland Chinese propaganda. They demanded cuts. Specifically, they wanted to remove dialogue about Shaolin's history and the reverence shown to Buddhist practices. Shaw Brothers refused. They argued the film was historical, not political, a story about personal discipline, not ideology. The standoff lasted weeks. Shaw Brothers threatened to skip the Taiwanese market entirely. Taiwan's distributors panicked because kung fu films were box office gold. Finally, a compromise was reached. The film could screen uncut, but promotional materials couldn't emphasize the Shaolin connection. Posters focused on Gordon Liu, the action, the training sequences. The word Shaolin appeared smaller. It was absurd censorship, but it allowed the film to reach Taiwanese audiences, who embraced it immediately, because philosophy transcends politics, and discipline needs no permission. Number 17. Hollywood didn't discover the film until years later. The 36th Chamber dominated Asian markets in 1978 and 1979, but Western distributors weren't interested. Kung fu films were considered niche, the training sequences too slow for American audiences. So, it played in Chinatown theaters and midnight screenings, building a cult following among martial arts enthusiasts and film students. Then, in the mid-1980s, home video changed everything. The 36th Chamber found its way onto VHS, passed between fans like contraband. Quentin Tarantino watched it repeatedly, studying the training sequences, the fight choreography, the way Lau built tension through patience. RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan saw it and became obsessed, sampling the film's philosophy into hip-hop culture. Slowly, the film's influence spread. Action choreographers started copying techniques. Directors referenced its structure. By the 1990s, everyone serious about martial arts cinema had seen the 36th Chamber, and Hollywood finally understood what they'd missed. Shaw Brothers had created a masterpiece. It just took the West 20 years to catch up. Number 18. Gordon Liu's performance required no dialogue coaching. Most Shaw Brothers productions dubbed their films in post-production, recording dialogue in a studio after filming wrapped. This allowed for cleaner audio and easier editing, but it also meant actors could mumble on set and fix it later. Gordon Liu refused that approach. He delivered every line as if it were being recorded live. Full emotion, perfect timing, complete commitment. The sound engineers loved him. The dubbing sessions took half the normal time because Liu's lip movements matched his dialogue precisely. But more importantly, his on-set performance was always genuine. When Sante speaks of his murdered family, Liu's grief is real. When he challenges the abbot, his defiance is authentic. He never saved anything for the dubbing booth. Everything. Lived in the moment. This influenced how other Shaw Brothers actors approached their work. They saw Liu's dedication and raised their own standards. The 36th Chamber set a new benchmark for performance in Kung Fu cinema. Not just physical prowess, but emotional truth. Number 19. The film's philosophy was personal to Lau Kar-leung. Before becoming a director, Lau studied martial arts under harsh masters who believed pain was the only teacher. He endured brutal training, public humiliation when he failed, and years of repetitive practice before earning respect. The 36th Chamber is his tribute to that tradition, but also his critique. Sante's journey shows both the value of disciplined training and the importance of innovation. The 35 chambers teach traditional techniques, but Sante creates a 36th chamber where ordinary people can learn, democratizing knowledge the elders wanted to hoard. This was Lau's radical message. Tradition matters, but it must evolve. Masters must share, not gatekeep. True strength comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down. Many martial arts traditionalists criticize this philosophy. They accused Lau of disrespecting ancient ways, but Lau argued that Shaolin itself was born from innovation. If martial arts couldn't adapt, they'd die. The 36th Chamber wasn't just entertainment, it was Lau's manifesto for modern Kung Fu, and it sparked debates that continue today. Number 20. The film spawned 2 sequels, but Gordon Liu refused the second one. Return to the 36th Chamber arrived in 1980, then Disciples of the 36th Chamber in 1985. Both traded on the original's success. Both carried the name. Both hoped lightning would strike twice. It didn't. Liu appeared in Return, playing Sante again, but the film shifted tone completely. More comedy, less philosophy. More slapstick, less discipline. It made money, but something felt off. Then Shaw Brothers wanted a third film. Liu said no. He was tired of shaving his head, tired of playing monks, tired of being typecast in roles that demanded months of brutal physical preparation. He wanted to move on, explore different characters, prove he could do more than carry water buckets and train on wooden poles. Shaw Brothers didn't listen. They cast him anyway, but in a completely different role. Not Sante, not even a monk, a con artist pretending to be a Shaolin master. So technically Gordon Liu appears in all 3 36th Chamber films, but plays Sante in only 2. This created massive confusion for fans. Was it a sequel, a side story, a reimagining? Shaw Brothers didn't care. The name alone sold tickets. The brand was golden. Disciples made money, pulled decent box office numbers, and disappeared quietly into video stores. But both sequels lacked the original's soul. They had action, comedy, and spectacle, wirework, jokes, elaborate set pieces, but they didn't have the discipline, the philosophy, the transformative journey that made the first film legendary. Critics recognized it immediately. Fans felt it in their bones. The 36th Chamber stands alone, not because the sequels were terrible, they weren't, but because the original achieved something sequels couldn't replicate. It captured lightning, it bottled magic, it turned suffering into enlightenment, and lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, not even in the 36th Chamber. Bonus fact. Years after the film's release, real Shaolin monks saw it. A delegation from Shaolin Temple in China's Henan province visited Hong Kong in the 1990s. Someone showed them the 36th Chamber. The monks watched in silence. When it ended, their leader spoke. He praised the film's accuracy in depicting training philosophy and discipline. But he laughed at one thing. The 36 chambers, he said, were fictional. Traditional Shaolin had training halls, but never that specific system. Lau Kar-leung had invented it, extrapolating from real techniques, but creating his own mythology. The monks weren't offended, they were impressed. Lau had understood Shaolin's essence so deeply, he could imagine authentic feeling traditions that never existed. And in doing so, he'd given the world something valuable, a roadmap for transformation. The 36th Chamber wasn't historical documentary. It was spiritual truth wrapped in fiction. And sometimes that's more powerful than facts.